Coming up on Wrestling Life.
We filed into the room, and we're just sitting in that room waiting for the press conference to start. Then I heard somebody in the back of the room go, "No way, he's here." I thought, oh, like who has walked into the room? Who's here? Like I thought maybe they like saw a friend or something. And they had a tiny little monitor on the floor. And they're like, "CM Punk's here." And I was like, what? So we all gather around this tiny little monitor, and you can kind of faintly hear the crowd reacting, but like we're in a room that's away from the arena. Like we're in the arena, like in the building, but we're away from where the actual show is happening. So you can kind of faintly hear that, but we're watching it. We're like, I can't believe this. Like CM Punk just walked out. Like there were rumors of this, but I don't know if anybody really thought it could happen.
This is Wrestling Life with Ben Veal, the show that celebrates wrestling's past, present, and future with real talk from real talent.
Hello and welcome, my friends, to another edition of Wrestling Life with Ben Veal. It's great to have you with us for a conversation that is going to be full of positivity today, because joining me in the studio is, in my humble opinion, the very best in the business when it comes to wrestling podcasting. But he's also one of the nicest, most genuine guys that I've had the pleasure of getting to know in this wild industry too. A highly accomplished television presenter, entrepreneur, and 4-time Emmy Award winner, you'd have to have been sitting under a wrestling rock the size of, well, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, to have missed his hugely popular podcast and YouTube show, Insight. He's usually the one asking the questions, but today he is the one in the hot seat. Joining me all the way from sunny Los Angeles, California, it is, of course, the one, the only, it's CVV, Chris Van Vliet. Chris,
Ben, so good to see you. Yeah, it's so great to see you. Congratulations on the massive growth of your show. Like it was just 10,000 subscribers. Now you're at 15,000 subscribers. I'm sure by the time this comes out, you'll be well into the 20s. So congrats on all of that.
Thank you. And yeah, I put out a post earlier with whether Papa Shango had put a voodoo spell on YouTube and had lifted me up. I'm hoping, I think that's what it might be.
That must be it. Yeah. If Papa Shango can do what he did to the Ultimate Warrior, I mean, who knows what he could do for your YouTube channel?
The man has no limits. So how are you? It's been the last time we did a recording together was on my other show, Good Journeys, and the last time we did that, you had just become a father for the first time. Now you're a dad of 2. So Congratulations. How are you? And are you sleeping at all?
Doing great. And I just feel so incredibly grateful that I'm at this stage of my life and in this stage of my life right now. Like, you know this, you're a father. It changes your life and it changes your perspective on everything. And it changes your perspective on what's important and maybe what's not important. And I just love where we're at right now. And I think the other really beautiful thing about this is I knew my wife, Rachel, I knew her, when we first started dating, then she was my girlfriend, then fiance, then wife. Now I know her as a mother, and it's been so beautiful seeing her come into that stage of her life as well.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I thought, yeah, the same with my wife. Like she was always born to be a mum.
Yes.
And it's beautiful when you see that stage. Obviously, they still remain your wife and your best friend and all that kind of stuff, but just beautiful to see them transition into being a mum as well.
Yeah, now I can't picture my life, obviously, without Rachel, but I can't picture my life without our 2 beautiful babies, Logan and Cooper. And that's an amazing, amazing thing. And I'm so grateful to have that gift.
Yeah, and gratitude is, of course, going to be a big theme throughout this conversation.
Are you hearing the baby crying right now?
I'm not, no.
Oh, then this mic must be incredible. The baby is crying very loudly right now.
Oh, dear. Are you good to carry on chatting?
Oh, yeah. We've got, mom and grandma are taking care of the baby.
You're fine. Well, my kids are upstairs chatting away. So between the 2 of us, it's all good. But no, very, very kind of you to say about my growth. I mean, of course, you are, as I said, you are the king of this game. You are, between your 2 channels, probably 1.5 million subscribers now, something like that. I mean, it's pretty crazy where you're at right now.
It is. And it's just crazy to look back on it. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but I started my main YouTube channel in 2011. So it's 14 years old. It's been just chipping away at it. It's just been constantly just chipping away week after week, month after month, year after year. And I think when you've been in the game as long as I have, eventually people start to somehow find your videos.
Yeah, I think you're hard to miss now. But I mean, I'm going to go way, way back in your broadcasting career. I'm going to go right back to the beginning because you told me before you were 4 years old when you got this Fisher Price little radio, and the seeds were sown for you to do what you do now, all the way back there. But when was it that you first discovered this kind of crazy world of pro wrestling, and what attracted you to the business?
So 4 years old, I got the Fisher Price tape recorder, and I just loved the idea of storytelling. And I pretended to be the radio DJs and the radio broadcasters, like the Blue Jays baseball broadcasters that I would hear on the radio. That's where that started. And I just loved the idea that broadcasting then, and also what it's become now with the internet, I guess it's just a different type of broadcasting. I love that at the heart of that is storytelling. And I'm just so fascinated by that. Wrestling first came into my life when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. It was always just on at my grandparents' house. And it's not that my grandpa was a huge wrestling fan, but he just loved having sports on the TV. A lot of hockey because I grew up in Canada.
Yep.
It'd be baseball in the summer, or it'd be basketball, sometimes football. But if that wasn't on, it'd be Saturday night's main event, and I'd see wrestling on. That's where I remember like the initial introduction to it. And I remember the larger than life characters like Ultimate Warrior and Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. But I also distinctly remember like some of the like mid-carders like Coco Beware and Repo Man. I remember, not that he's a mid-carder, but I remember my uncle saying to me, "You know what an Undertaker is, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's that guy with like the gloves and the hat." He's like, no, like Undertaker's like someone at like the cemetery, like burying people. I'm like, oh, wow. Like I remember that very vividly.
Like, what? It's a real job?
Yeah, right. But it was late 90s Attitude Era. That's when I became a hardcore fan. And I went from watching like not a ton of wrestling to watching everything. WWE, well, I guess WWF at the time, and WCW. And I was watching it all and pay-per-views. That's when I went from like pretty much zero to everything. And I'm the type of person, Ben, that when I get into something, I just dive right in. I don't check the depth of the water. I don't check the temperature of the water. Just dive all the way in. And I'm like, I'll figure it out once I get in there. And that's what it was for wrestling. And I really haven't looked back since.
Did you then circle back at what you missed? Because obviously the early to mid 90s, it was a strange time, some of that 90s wrestling. But did you go back and kind of go back to like 92, 93? Or did you just have like a big gap where you jumped from like the late 80s into the Attitude Era?
Well, I wasn't like following it late 80s, early 90s when I was just aware of it. I was aware of what it was. And I was, doing these moves on my cousins who were about the same age as me. When I started watching, McMahon and Austin was the main storyline. And that for me was just like, that's the starting point. And I didn't really go back and like rewatch a bunch of stuff because think about it. How were we going to? Other than like going to Blockbuster and grabbing the VHSs, there wasn't the option to just like, I'll just turn on the WWE Network or Peacock or whatever it was. You didn't have that option. Yeah, sure, I would go back and like, I understood the importance of like Brett versus Shawn and everything that happened around that, and like some of the iconic WrestleMania matches. But we are so lucky in this era of wrestling that you could type a few words, a few names into YouTube, and you're seeing everything. Not only are you seeing matches, but you're seeing people's opinions on those matches, and you're seeing clips from those matches. We're living in such an amazing era right now where you could dive deep down the rabbit hole of like just watching Mr. Perfect matches. And that would take up the next like 4 months of your life. And I love that.
I'm fine with that. I could watch 4 months.
Me too.
You could watch 4 months of Coco Beware.
You could watch 4 months of the Repo Man.
Oh, I'm more than happy to do 4 months of Repo Man. I mean, so I obviously, as you know, I was and always will be a Bret Hart guy, so Bret got me into the business when I was 8 years old. That never wavered. So I guess you're a little bit older when you kind of with the Attitude Era, so you're kind of late teens in Attitude Era. I'm guessing mid teens. We're about the same age, aren't we? So,
Yeah, it was like 16. Like, yeah.
So
15,
who was your guy? Was it Stone Cold? Who was your guy that you were behind?
So this is funny, right? Because if you're talking about the era just before that, like you're talking about, it was either Sean Brett, right? You had to pick.
Yep.
And then in the era right after that, it was Rock or Austin. Like, which one are you? And I obviously have a tremendous amount of respect for both of them. They're two of the greatest of all time. But for me, it's The Rock. And I feel like so much of like who I became in those formidable years of my life as a teenager, I owe to Dwayne Johnson, just like the charisma that he had, like the way that he had this larger than life personality that just filled up a room. That was it for me. And I love that The Rock was so commanding with his presence, whether he was in the ring in a match or he was on the mic in a promo. And I love that. Like I remember walking down the halls of my high school, asking people questions just so I could shout at them. It doesn't matter what you think. Like that's who I was. And The Rock was my guy. But wrestling was so hot at that point in time that I remember seeing people as I was starting to really become a diehard fan. They'd be wearing an Austin 316 shirt or a DX shirt. It's like, it's that scene from Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
Yep. That was it for me. It was like, I didn't know you were a wrestling fan. And like, then automatically every Tuesday morning you had something to talk about because Raw had been the night before. And that's just something about wrestling that it connects us all together.
And for us in the UK, it would be, you knew who was wrestling fans because it would come to Monday morning and knew who was wrestling fan by how exhausted they were because we'd have stayed up until 3 a.m. to watch the pay-per-view. And
right.
Be at school at 9 o'clock in the morning and you'd be like, did you see the Royal Rumble? Like you barely open your eyes. You were so tired. There was no way you were going to miss it watching it live.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like, you know, you start out as a fan. It's very clear that you're still a wrestling fan to this day. And I think that's a big part of the joy that comes through in your conversations is you still clearly love talking to these guys as much as I do. How surreal was it when you, Chris Van Vliet, are invited onto the Undertaker's podcast as a guest?
There's going to be nothing that's going to ever top that. Like that was really surreal. So the whole story there was I noticed that 6 Feet Under, the Instagram handle, had started following me on Instagram. So I'm like, of course, it's the Undertaker's podcast. I'll follow back. Then I got a message from that account. They said, hey, we're going to send you out some t-shirts. You know, give me the best address for that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to get these t-shirts from the Undertaker's podcast? Crazy. Turns out it was Undertaker's co-host, Matt Lyda, who I've been communicating with. And Matt's a great guy and does a great job co-hosting the podcast with the Undertaker. He sends me a message and says, we're thinking about having you on the show. Would you be open to coming down to Austin? And then Undertaker could be on your show that day too. We'd figure out how to work both. And I'm like, hold on, what? Like, you want me? You want me to be on the show? Like, of all the people you could interview, you want me? Are you sure? You sure you're reaching out to the right person? So that's where it began. And flew into Austin, did the interview at the studio that the Undertaker rents. I was a guest on his show, which was so surreal to just be sitting there talking with one of the greatest of all time about wrestling and him asking me questions about my opinion. Like, are you serious? And also, it's also weird because he introduces himself as Mark and he is the nicest person ever. But you're having to forget, like, yeah, this is Mark. This is Mark Calloway. It's not it is the Undertaker, but it's not the Undertaker. I'm talking to Mark right now. So like I caught myself a few times, like, is it Mark or is it Taker or is it Undertaker? What am I supposed to call this guy? But what was funny was we did the interview. And then after that, I said, all right, so like, where should we do the interview with you later today? Because we did the interview on his show that morning. And he said, we could do it here at the studio. We could do it at my house. Yeah, whatever you want. I said, well, I want to make it like as convenient as possible for you. So where should we do it? He's like, yeah, why don't we do it at my house? I'm like, okay, yeah, done. We'll go set up at your house and do it. What time do you think we'll be done here? Like, what time will you be finished at the studio so we can go there and set up and do the interview? We'll be done here at like 4:30. Why don't you go to my house at like 4, set up so that when I get there, you're ready to roll? And I'm like, okay, here's my address. here's my phone number. Take my phone number down in case you get lost or you can't get through the gate or whatever. And like, I'm sitting there the whole time, like, Undertaker's giving me his phone number right now. I saved it in my phone as The Undertaker. And I'm like, okay. He's like, the gate code to get in is whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was. And I'm like, okay, all right, sounds good. And when you get to the other gate, because there were 2 gates, just tell him you're there to see the Callaways. I'm like, all right, yeah, sounds good. And yeah, sure enough, pulled up to his house. He lives on, I don't know, dozens of acres and beautiful house. And we set up in his gym. And just like setting up the cameras and the lights and the tripods and plugging in the plugs and making sure everything worked. All the while, he's not there. And it was just like so surreal to me. And his gym has all kinds of memorabilia and like there's something in there like signed from his match with Shawn Michaels, and like just cool being in his space, seeing all this stuff.
I'm Marc Mero, former WWE Intercontinental Wrestling Champion and 3-time WCW World Television Champion. I am thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Bad to Good. The inspiring story of a wrestling wild man chronicles the highs and lows of my life, both in and out of the wrestling ring. It's a powerful narrative of overcoming adversity and the importance of perseverance, no matter how tough the journey gets. Co-authored with my good friend and award-winning journalist, Ben Veal, this is a story I've long wanted to share, and I truly hope it inspires you. I hold nothing back in this book, revealing the untold truths of my extraordinary life, from my modest beginnings and my first boxing match to the struggles with addiction that almost consumed me and my evolution into the charismatic Johnny B. Bad. This book offers an insider's perspective on the world of professional wrestling and my journey as a sports entertainer. You'll read about my pivotal negotiations with Vince McMahon that led to the first ever guaranteed contract in the WWF and how that decision marked me within the locker room. I discuss the impact of my relationship with my then wife, Rena, known to fans as Sable, on my career. I also confront the darkest moments of my life, how I hit rock bottom and how that experience sparked my rebirth, leading me to become America's leading motivational school speaker, inspiring young people and transforming lives. Featuring forwards by my good friends Diamond Dallas Page and Lex Luger, along with contributions from Mick Foley, Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, and others who shared this wild journey with me. Bad to Good is a story you don't want to miss. Head to Amazon.com or WrestlingLife.online now to pick up your copy.
And then he does arrive. We're all ready to go. And I said, well, how long do you want to record for? He's like, oh, man, we can talk till there's nothing more to talk about. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And we talked for almost 2 hours. And I feel like we could have gone for 2 or 3 or 4 more. Yeah. But what a great guy. And, you don't hear anybody say anything bad about The Undertaker for a reason. He's just a great, amazing guy. And what a day that was.
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough to interview 2 of the BSK so far, and they both have said to me like just how enjoyable it is now to see that the world can actually see Mark as opposed to The Undertaker that we saw for 30 years. Like how beautifully he protected kayfabe for so long and stayed in character, and now everyone can just see this really laid back Texan just having fun and telling stories. It's great to see.
Yeah, and that's exactly who he is. And I still can't believe that day happened, because then after that, we all went out to dinner. So everybody that had come into Austin to do his podcast, we all went to dinner after that. So it was Midian, Godfather, Maven, of course, Undertaker, and me, and a few other people. But we all went to dinner after that, and like closed down the place and like drank some amazing wine. And it's just like start to finish. As a wrestling fan, I can't believe that day existed.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's just a testament to how far you've come there. And as you say, like being in the game for this long, doing what you've been doing, honing your craft. I mean, people see it. People see what you're doing, and people see that, you've done a lot in terms of, I think, really help him with mainstream awareness of wrestling. Obviously, through the work you've done as an entertainment reporter and how you had access in the early days. And I think at a time when wrestling wasn't getting a huge amount of positive coverage in the late noughties, I think I'm sure a lot of people respect the fact that actually you were there, putting out positive stories, actually giving wrestlers a platform because you actually respect the industry, and people notice that stuff.
Well, and I never thought about it that way. I literally just thought about it when I was an entertainment reporter. I just thought about it of like, here's an opportunity to talk to wrestlers. I'm a wrestling fan, and here's my chance because WWE or TNA is in town. Here's my chance to talk to the people who I've looked up to since I was a kid.
Yeah.
That's all it started out as. I was fortunate to work as an entertainment reporter and interview some of the biggest actors on the planet and some of the biggest names in comedy or some of the greatest directors. And every once in a while, when wrestling would come to town, wrestling falls under that umbrella of entertainment, I would get to talk to a wrestler. That's all it started out as. It's taken on a life of its own now, but that's really all it began as, of like, we need to fill an entertainment slot on TV every single day. Wrestling's here. This is the perfect marriage of me being a wrestling nerd and getting to just pick their brain about who they are and what they've done.
Was Bobby Lashley your first one? I've seen that video of you with Bobby Lashley and the ECW title. Was that number one for you?
Yeah, Bobby Lashley was my first one. January of 2007, I was working for a show in Vancouver at the time. The show was called 969 on what ended up becoming MTV2 Canada. That was the very first one. And now I've been able to bring it full circle and interview Bobby again. He's one of the nicest people on the planet, like constantly smiling. And behind that smile, he's someone who could like break all of your limbs, which is crazy. But yeah, that was the very first one.
I think, what, from the outside looking in at what you do, like, all looks very glamorous, all looks very polished, you're growing from strength to strength. But I know firsthand from speaking to you, and obviously you helping me with my own kind of content creation journey, I know how much work goes into this, and I know how hard you're working to do what you're doing. I mean, how has your approach to content creation changed in the last few years? Because it seems like you've really got it locked down now. The formula, it works, and you're a machine in terms of getting out guest after guest after great guest.
My biggest change has been I've started treating this like it's a job because it is my job. And if you were hired by any TV station, if you worked for ABC or NBC or the BBC, or I guess I'm just listing ones that have the C in them. Now, if you worked for ESPN or Fox or whatever, you wouldn't have a choice. If you had a daily interview segment on the show, you would have to book a guest. There would be no excuse. You would have to make it happen. And I think that with content creation, too many people think of it like it's a hobby. Too many people think of it like, well, I sent 2 emails and no one responded, so I guess we're not doing an episode this week. And that's not how a job works. So when I started treating this like a job and like a career, that's when things really started shifting for me. So, you don't get an answer from this email or this DM, move on to the next one. Didn't get an answer there, move on to the next one. Didn't get an answer there, move on to the next one. And the biggest thing about what I do now is I'm just trying to get to yes. I'm just trying to get someone to say, yes, I'll be on your show, whether that's here in Los Angeles or like later today, I'm flying to Las Vegas to do a few episodes. It's just, are you available? Yes. Okay, great. We'll figure out the rest. We'll figure out the date and the time and the location around your schedule and mine, but let's just get to yes. So even with having a baby a few months ago and then having a baby, 21 months before that, I was able to like stock up a bunch of interviews so that it looked like we were working through it, even though I was able to spend a lot of like great quality time with the family. But it just comes down to like, I have 3 episodes a week, every single week. 2 of them are interviews with guests, and one of them is an Ask CVV episode on Fridays where I answer questions from fans and talk about, like, most recently, like John Cena's heel turn and like other big things that are happening in wrestling. So it's 3 episodes a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, every week without fail.
Yeah.
Like, you don't turn on the TV on Sports Center and there's like a banner on the screen that says like, sorry, we couldn't find anything to talk about today. Like, there's no excuse for it. And that's been the biggest thing for me is like, you wouldn't have an excuse if you worked for somebody else at a radio network or a TV network. So you shouldn't have any excuse when you're doing it for yourself. And the thing I realize, and I think I've told you this a lot of times, Ben, if you keep showing up, if you keep being consistent, so in my case, if it's every Tuesday, every Thursday, and every Friday, your audience starts to expect that from you as well. And if you keep showing up, they're going to keep showing up as well.
Well, they're certainly showing up for you, and I think, yeah, exactly. That is the shift, isn't it? Like you've treated it like a job, but still that kind of inherent kind of enthusiasm and passion is still there in every conversation you have. You're clearly loving what you're doing. You've obviously got it down pat in terms of the administration and working through it, but when it comes to the camera being on and being with that guest, every time it's clear you're having the time of your life, and I think that's why your show is growing so quickly.
Well, thank you for the kind words, but I just genuinely enjoy this.
Yeah.
Like at the heart of this, I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Like,
I find this surreal. I get to do this still. I'm like, how do I get to interview all these wrestlers that I love, who I loved as a kid? I feel very blessed.
and that's the shift, right? That you get to do this. It's not that you have to do this. And when you start to shift things in your life from like, I have to do this to, I am so fortunate and grateful that I get to do this. And a lot of things start to change in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got to write a book with a wrestler. Never thought I'd get to do that.
Congratulations.
I had his figure when I was a kid, you know, and it's stuff like that. It's like a real blessing. Yes, it is a job and it is hard work, but it's still like, it's something that is just such a joy. And my 10-year-old self is like, how is this my life now? And I think people get that. People can see that. And, you know, all of us are fans. I think the great thing is as well, like all of the wrestlers today are fans. Like, I know there's the old thing of kind of being a mark and not kind of showing you're too much of a fan. But I think all of the guys who are like in the locker room these days grew up as huge fans in the 80s or 90s. We all fell in love with this thing.
Yeah, and I feel like we have that in common as well. And like the thing that I love the most about what I get to do with these interviews is like I want to learn about like some of their biggest moments or biggest matches, but I also want to figure out like where did you come from to get where you're at? Like so often social media just shows us the final product and they don't show us like all of the stumbles along the way to get there. And that's what I want to figure out. Like, you're the world champion. We see you at WrestleMania holding up the title, but like, what happens when it didn't work a handful of years ago? Or what happened when someone told you you'd never make it? And how did you get past that? That's the stuff I'm fascinated by because we can all learn from that. Maybe you don't have a lot in common or you don't think you have a lot in common with the world champion or someone who's doing amazing things. But when you start to break down your story and you start to put little bits of who you are into their story, you start to realize, oh yeah, there's a lot of their story that speaks to me. And there's a lot of their struggles that maybe I'm going through right now. And that's what I love about it.
Well, thank you, Chris, for giving me the perfect lead into this question, because one of those guys that you have really journeyed along from the Indies to AEW to the last time you had on being WWE champion is, of course, Cody Rhodes. And that's someone that you've now interviewed, what, 5 times, 6 times? Lost count of how many times you've had Cody on.
I think that's how many, yeah.
But you've seen him through this real, you know, taking a gamble on himself, completely walking away from everything because it felt right in his heart. And obviously that gamble and self-belief has paid off 100-fold. What's it been like to kind of follow that journey? Because obviously as a fan watching him, it's been incredible. But what's it been like as someone who's managed to speak with him a number of times along those different paths he's taken?
My first interview with Cody was in 2011. You can go way back. It's one of the first interviews ever uploaded to my channel. He's still wearing the face protector as dashing Cody Rhodes.
I loved that. That's such a great gimmick.
It was so great. It was a really quick interview at WrestleMania Access, WrestleMania 27 Access. From then till now, he's been the same guy. And that's what's so amazing about Cody is he's incredibly authentic. And everything that he has in his life and his career, he has earned. And Cody's just always been so kind to me. So from there, I also interviewed him when he was the Ring of Honor champion. I think that was 2017. I interviewed him like a few days before the very first AEW show, Double or Nothing, in May 2019. Like really like kind of pivotal points of his career. I also interviewed him as his documentary was coming out. And then I interviewed him just this past summer when he'd been the champion for like a few months. I interviewed him Money in the Bank weekend in Toronto. And he's just always been Cody the entire time. And I also did some things when AEW was first starting. I did some things with AEW and he was like my point of contact, which was interesting. Like it was him who reached out to me like, can you be in Atlanta on Monday to record some things? And at that time I had a TV job and I'm like, I can't say no to Cody, but yeah, sure, I'll be there and I'll figure out, like, maybe I'll call in to work sick or something like that. Cody's always been great, and he's always had a vision for what he wants in his life. And I give him all the credit for stepping away from something that I guess looked like it might have been working. And I'm talking about both WWE and AEW. Like, on the surface, everything looked great, but clearly he wasn't happy with whatever was going on there. And we're never going to know the full story, certainly with AEW, but for Cody to bet on himself more than once and to be able to have the faith that he's going to be able to make it work, that is a commendable trait in anybody.
And it seems like he seems like a character that's done similar things for a lot of people. Like his name's cropped up quite a few times when I've spoken to Mike Chioda, who talked about, obviously, after he was let go from WWE, Cody calling him up and saying, you need to ref these matches in AEW. Seems like he's brought a lot of people along on that journey, whilst not, as you say, not really changing all the time as he's got more successful. I mean, I feel of all the WrestleManias I could have been at live, I feel so blessed I got to be there for the main event of WrestleMania 40 and for that moment, because that was just such a magical match that really did take me back to being a kid again. That's just incredible.
Yeah, WrestleMania 40 is an all-timer. And I know that there's this real struggle as a wrestling fan between, like, nostalgia and recency bias. Like, they're two, like, huge things, like, combating each other. But I think that when we do have some time for this to breathe a little bit, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to look back at that main event of WrestleMania 40 as one of the best main events of all time. Now, I'm not saying, don't get too excited here, people. I'm not saying it's the greatest. I'm saying it's going to go down as one of the greatest for sure.
Yeah, to be honest, I felt it already being in the arena. I felt like I was watching one of the best of all time in that moment. It's just, I mean, it was just magical. And but talking of big moments, you've had John Cena on your show a bunch of times, and John actually revealed to you, I think this was he was talking about his 2012 run with The Rock. He revealed to you on one of your shows that he came so close to turning heel that they had everything ready to go, and at the last minute, the trigger wasn't pulled. It's happened. Out of nowhere, Elimination Chamber 2025, we have a heel John Cena. I mean, what was your reaction to that moment, that incredible facial expression, and how excited are you for what's to come now with a bad guy John Cena?
I was in the building. I was at Rogers Center for Elimination Chamber back in my hometown of Toronto. I just had a live show the night before with Natalia where she put me in the sharpshooter, which was also kind of like a bucket list item, right? A member of the Hart family putting you in the sharpshooter. But watching John Cena turn heel was just so masterfully done. And I didn't see it coming. I think that I speak for most wrestling fans, not all, but most wrestling fans. Most of us didn't see that coming. And I felt that the whole lead up to that, with Cody being asked for his soul by The Rock, was just a red herring, right? Like, it was just too obvious. Like, I don't think Cody may turn heel at some point in time, and it'll be great when that happens, but I don't think now would be the right time for it to happen. I didn't see that coming from John Cena. And I also just didn't think we'd have enough time. John Cena has made it very clear that December is it. Like, December is his last match, and that's it. He'll never wrestle again. He'll still do things with WWE, but he'll never wrestle again. So I thought that, all right, well, it was already March at that point in time. How's John Cena going to turn heel and then end the year as a babyface? Like, that heel run it'd be too short. Well, whatever they're cooking up here and whatever they have in store, I think we just need to sit back and wait. And I think one of the layers of the John Cena heel turn that not a lot of people are focused on is you've got John Cena in there, who's been acting since, I think the Marine was 2006. I think that's when it was. Then you've got The Rock in there, who's been acting for as long as he's been acting. You've got two of these Hollywood veterans who've been acting for decades. And just the subtlety from both of them, both The Rock's facial expression and John Cena's facial expression, it just adds a whole other layer of what made that so good. And it's amazing because we've never seen this side of John Cena before. But this isn't just John Cena saying he's a heel. That's like the entire emotion from his face was just drained out of his face. Like, that is an iconic shot that we will be looking back on forever. And I love that they're going in this direction. I can't wait to see what's next. And I hope that we all have the patience as wrestling fans. And I know that that is a very difficult thing for wrestling fans to have patience. But I just hope that we all have the patience to see this through instead of fantasy booking this in our heads and trying to, well, this thing should happen and then this thing should happen. Let's just sit back and relax and wait. Like I laugh now at all the people that were saying that The Rock's appearance at Bad Blood was a waste of time and meant nothing. Oh, really? Oh, really? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that there's a lot of that's going on in this era where there's a lot of things where it may not seem to have a payoff in that exact moment in time, but give it some time, have a little bit of patience to see where they're going with this. Even people were saying they didn't like the Rock promo, like, give me your soul. And I was just like, have a little bit of patience. Like this will pay off. Yeah. And it paid off in a way bigger way than we ever could have possibly imagined.
And that's what I love as well. With like, you go back and then you see the little nuances. Like it was 6 or 7 months ago that Cena was losing, and he's like, "Oh, I haven't won a match in over 2,000 days." And then you question how he got eliminated at the Royal Rumble, and you just you can go back and see all the different layers of the onion. And that's what's beautiful about wrestling storytelling done well. When you go back and you're like, "Oh, when did they plan this from? How long has this been in the works for? Was this in the works last year when he announced he was retiring? Was this always the plan?" And that's what I love about being a wrestling fan, is that the magic is still there every so often. I also love those facial expressions, how within an hour it was already a meme, like Friday night, Monday morning.
We're like 40 minutes into the movie right now. And I just want to remind people of that. Like, so if some things don't add up or if there's some loose ends here, just wait. Just wait. It'd be like turning to your friend or your wife or your sibling and being like, well, this doesn't make any sense, when there's still like, if you were to pause the movie and it's 40 minutes into the movie and there's still another hour and 20 to go. It's like, just wait. All right. You can see there's an hour 20 left. Just wait till the end of the movie to see where this goes. That's where we're at right now. WrestleMania is still a month and a bit away from now. There's still a lot of storytelling to happen between now and then. And I just really enjoy sitting back and watching this unfold. There was actually a video, Muscleman Malcolm, who's a good friend and a great YouTuber. He was filming some of his reactions at Elimination Chamber, and I was sitting next to him. And he's like in shock, like, oh my gosh, no, this is crazy. What's happening? And he pans over to me, and I'm just sitting there like smiling, like, I can't believe I'm watching this masterpiece. Like, I can't believe they're going for this. And it was just a funny, seeing both reactions right next to each other. Like, he's losing, and I'm just going, wow.
It is. I was just sitting there like, they've done it.
And I'm like, I can't believe they're doing this. Whoa.
Because
where does it go from here? I don't know, but I'm excited.
I did think it would happen. I have been thinking it would happen, but I thought it would be the end of WrestleMania. That was I thought, as soon as I thought, if they're setting up Cody and Cena, there's going to be a turn at the end of WrestleMania. I didn't see it happening how it went down. I almost saw a bit more like an Austin Rock kind of WrestleMania 17. Cena gets more and more aggressive, and it was almost like they do a double turn almost. I certainly didn't see him partnering with The Rock or completely changing his persona. It's exciting. I'm excited you got to see it, because you don't always get to see the big moments. There's one very big moment that you missed. And for anyone who doesn't know this story, we have to just go back on this. Amidst all the glamour of your job and being at these WWE press events, you missed CM Punk's big return at the 2023 Survivor Series. What happened, Chris?
But look, this is no fault of anybody's. And I also think that this just speaks to how much of a secret that this was. So the way that those press conferences work, the ones that you see right after the PLE, is usually like 1, 2, 3. They get all of the press members together and they file them into the room where the press conference is. So the War Games match ended 1, 2, 3. Everybody got up. We filed into the room, and we're just sitting in that room waiting for the press conference to start. Then I heard somebody in the back of the room go, no way, he's here. I thought, oh, like who has walked into the room? Who's here? Like, I thought maybe they saw a friend or something. And they had a tiny little monitor on the floor. And they're like, CM Punk's here. And I was like, what? So we all gather around this tiny little monitor. and you can kind of faintly hear the crowd reacting, but like we're in a room that's away from the arena. Like we're in the arena, like in the building, but we're away from where the actual show is happening. So you can kind of faintly hear that, but we're watching it. We're like, I can't believe this. Like CM Punk just walked out. Like there were rumors of this, but I don't know if anybody really thought it could happen. Yeah. So
they even had the graphic on the screen, didn't they? Like the end of show graphic had even.
Yeah. So they tricked everybody.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was no fault of anybody's, like, which also means that the people who were taking us to the press conference, they didn't know, because there was another show since, it was actually Bad Blood, where 1, 2, 3, and I saw the people that were going to take us to the press conference, and they weren't like motioning for us to go. And I'm like,
you're waiting for something's happening.
Something's about to happen. And then sure enough, the like fog filled up the entranceway. And then if you smell, and I was like, there it is. Oh, that's why we were waiting. Yeah. But yeah, I was in the building for CM Punk's return, but I did not physically see CM Punk return. And I just wish I was in there to hear how loud that was, because I remember just from the moment that I got into those seats, how just that arena feels really loud. And there's something about it, like the ceiling is maybe a little bit lower. And if you look up at the ceiling, it's made of wood, which I feel like just like keeps the sound in. And I noticed even earlier on in the night, there was some really loud CM Punk chants, because we were in Chicago, obviously. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's like louder than I've heard before. And it was just the setup of the arena and the acoustics in there. So I would have loved to have been in there to hear that. It would have been just deafening.
Yeah. But there'll be many more moments, I'm sure. It's, and you were there. That's the important thing.
I don't know if there'll be any more moments that big, but like that was a big one.
That was big. That was big. There's a couple of guys I've got to ask you about, but we've both got to know well. You more so than me. One great guy that you've had on a bunch of times in your show, he's become a mutual friend of ours, is Diamond Dallas Page. I've met very few people in my life who have such a genuine desire to help others as DDP. What's it been like for you getting to know Dallas over these years?
He's such a genuinely great person. And I love how selfless he is with everything that he does. And of course, you've seen the stories of him helping Jake the Snake Roberts or Scott Hall, Butterbean, most recently Lex Luger. And that doesn't come from anywhere other than he just wants to help people. He told me a quote from Zig Ziglar that was, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want in life. And that really speaks to who Dallas is. And I don't know if you've heard the story or not, but the way we met is crazy. I just flown into LA for a movie called Bohemian Rhapsody. I was going to interview the cast of that movie.
Love that film.
Great movie. I just checked into my hotel room and I'm like unpacking some of my stuff, and I hear someone like trying to get into the room. And I thought, oh, like that must be like the cleaning staff, and like they'll figure it out. They'll figure out that they're in the wrong room. And then it persisted. Person's like trying to get in the room, and I hear like the jiggling of the doorknob. I can't open this thing. So I'm like, I'll go over there and say like, oh, hey, we're good. Like, don't need to clean the room. I look through the peephole, and it's DDP, who at this point I've never met before. What the heck? Of all the hotels that he could be in, of all the rooms he could be trying to get into, it's mine. So I open up the door and I'm like, hey, you're in the wrong room, but I'm a big wrestling fan. And he's like, bro, I gotta go to the bathroom so bad. Can I use your bathroom? Like, yeah, of course you can. So he comes in, he takes like the world's longest pee. He's thrown all of his stuff in the hallway of my room. So I'm like looking at the closed door of the bathroom, looking at all of his stuff. And I'm like, how is this happening? Like, how is DDP here? And I said, I interview a lot of wrestlers. I started showing him my YouTube channel. I'm like, oh, I'd love to have you on the show sometime. And he's like, well, why don't we do it right now? Like, okay, sure. And that was where our friendship began, with like him trying to break into my hotel room. And it just turned into a great friendship. And it's always so fun. He's a caller. He's not much of a texter. He's a caller. So if he's thinking about you and he wants to tell you something and he calls you, it's the coolest thing. Like, DDP's name is popping up on your phone. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I've had that, and it's pretty odd. It's one of those surreal little moments. One of your recent interviews that really moved me was the great conversation you had with now WWE Hall of Famer Lex Luger. I mean, Lex joined me as a guest here on Wrestling Life in 2024, and he's got to be one of the gentlest, humblest guys I've ever met. Like, so far removed from the total package and narcissist that we all grew up watching. That was a really special one, and so glad that you had that conversation, which I think just perfectly laid the groundwork for the Hall of Fame a few weeks later. And how amazing
Well,
was it as well to see him stand up to get the moment with Cody. Incredible. That brought a tear to my eye.
Yeah. And like long overdue. Like,
Oh yeah.
Lex Luger should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago, but I knew that DDP had been doing some work with Lex. I spent some time with DDP earlier this year, and I stayed at his house, and he was telling me about some of the stuff, and he showed me a few videos about the progress that Lex had made. And he's like, next time you're out here, that's someone you should catch up with and like just talk about the work we've been doing together. And it just happened to time out that the interview came out, and then he got inducted to the Hall of Fame like right after that. But yeah, Lex just has this real passion for life. And from the second you meet him, he's just a smiling, happy, and grateful person. And it really speaks to like who you were doesn't necessarily need to define who you are now. And like Lex owns up to his mistakes. Like he famously says in our interviews, like, look, I've been in the penthouse to the outhouse to the jailhouse. And the fact that he can be that self-aware and speak openly about the mistakes that he made in his life was really great to hear. And I think there's a real lesson that we can learn from that, because we all make mistakes. Every single day we make mistakes, some bigger than others. But for us to be able to learn from those mistakes and grow from them, I think is the real lesson to be learned.
Yeah, he's part of a very special group that all, I think, have been in some very, very dark times and come out the other side. But from Dallas to Lex to Marc Mero to Scotty Riggs, Buff Bagwell, Jake Roberts, obviously Scott Hall before he passed. Like that whole group had just such a great kind of brotherhood. And I think that's the thing that sometimes gets overlooked in wrestling, actually, these deep brotherhood friendships that just go on for generations and how they just all look after one another. And that's what I've loved as I've got to know more of the guys in the business.
Yeah, and it's so cool to see that, especially after all of these years. Like wrestling's the thing that brought them together in the first place, and wrestling's now the thing that like continues to keep them as friends. And Dallas does a really good job of checking in on people, not just fellow wrestlers, but just people that he cares about. He does a really good job of checking in on people and just, making sure you're doing okay.
Yeah, he checks in on me and makes sure I'm doing my DDP yoga. I don't always have the right answer for him, but I'm not as committed.
Maybe you should start doing it some more.
Yeah, I know. If he wouldn't tell me off. So look, last question for today really is, I mean, I find it hard to believe that anyone listening to this show doesn't know your show, Chris, but if anyone has been living under the Dwayne Johnson rock and hasn't yet checked out an episode of Insight, how would you describe Insight and what it is that you do that's maybe a bit different to other podcasters and creators out there?
I don't know if I'm the right person to describe what's different about it, but I just know that I am genuinely curious about who my guests are, and I'm asking questions from like a place of genuine curiosity to figure out like who they are and how they got to where they're at. Like I keep a note section in my iPhone of like someone that I may possibly interview one day. Like I keep a note for like anyone that could possibly be on the show or come back on the show again. And if I see something interesting in an old clip or I see something interesting in current programming, I'll just like write a little note like, oh man, I got to ask about that thing. Like I've always wondered about like this or that. That's really what it is. It's just like a genuine curiosity is the approach that I take. And I think also like I want to know, like I'm fully aware that nobody watches my show or listens to my show because of me. Like I'm fully aware they're there for the guests. Well, I am also there.
I disagree with that completely. That's
not true.
But I think you've reached that point now that people also enjoy you, Chris.
Maybe but probably not. So like, I'm aware that like they're there for the guests and I'm also there for the guests. And I want to genuinely figure out like, who are you? What's your story all about? How'd you get to where you're at? And then selfishly, how can I learn from that as well and like grow as a person myself? I think that that's really where it comes from for me. But I just know that I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and hope that people will subscribe to the show and watch it and listen to it. And we're going to keep showing up every Tuesday and Thursday and Friday.
Absolutely. And when we last spoke, I know that you were kind of looking towards goals and you kind of had your eyes set on 1 million. That was kind of your big goal. I mean, you're very almost with your CVV Clips channel, very almost at 1 million now. It's not far off at all for where you're going. And, you know, kind of, you're always there in the charts. It's pretty much either you or the Undertaker kind of vying for the top spot, which I think if you're going to come in second place in anything, being second to the Undertaker is acceptable.
Yeah, I'm putting him over. Yeah, I'm putting over the Undertaker.
I mean,
I have a whiteboard just off screen here. And this was on October 21st, 2023. I had 353,808 subscribers. And I said at that point in time that the goal was to hit 1 million by my birthday. So I was confident at that point in time that I was going to get 647,000 more subscribers. I don't know where that confidence came from, but my birthday's May 19th. And I feel like that's a real possibility to hit it before then.
I do. I'm putting it out into the universe now. We've got 2 months for you to gain, 60,000 subscribers?
Yeah, it's possible.
That is possible. That is possible. I actually took your idea after you told me that last year. I've got a whiteboard, and in October 2024, I had 2,425 subscribers. Now I'm just on over 15,000. I know it's not all a numbers game, but it's still really satisfying when you work this hard and you're so passionate about what you do. And I just want people to hear these conversations. And I want people to hear the stories. I mean, I just got to ask Henry Godwin what was in the slot bucket. I mean, that's a question I've wanted to know for 30 years.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
That was my top question. I was like, even if I ask you nothing else in this interview, I now know what you put in the slot bucket.
What's in the slot bucket?
You have to listen to find out, Chris.
Oh, wow, what a tease.
Hey. But yeah, so I think, but you know, you will hit 1 million. I have no doubt about that. What comes afterwards? Where do you go? Is it 2 million? Is it 5? Like, do you just kind of keep going and just see what happens now? What are your dreams?
The goal for me has always been day to day. And it's always been, will I wake up excited for what I'm going to do today? And then at the end of the day, am I proud of what I've accomplished? And then wake up tomorrow and let's do that again. That's always been it for me. Numbers are great. And I made the goal to hit 1 million subscribers on my YouTube channel by my birthday, May 19th this year. Just as kind of like, that's something we're shooting for. But really, it's just the day to day, because I'm a big believer that if you win enough days, then you win the week. And if you win enough weeks, you win the month. And if you win enough months, you win the year. And you just keep extrapolating that out. That's it for me. And I set a goal when I was about to graduate from college. And it was such a simple goal of like, I just didn't want to hate my job. That was it. I didn't want to wake up and go, oh man, I have to go to work today. Or I can't even enjoy Sunday because I know I've got to wake up tomorrow and go to this job that I don't enjoy going to. I made it a goal. Like, it wasn't, I want to love my job, which I'm very fortunate and grateful that I do. But the goal was just, I don't want to hate my job. That's it. That's where it really began for me, of like, if we're going to work for 40, 50 years of our life, I just didn't want to wake up 5 days a week, you know, for the next 40 or 50 years doing something that just didn't fuel me up. And that was it. That's it. That's it for me. Is just like, enjoy today and then hopefully enjoy tomorrow and then do it again after that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Before we wrap up, I mean, going back to the whole fatherhood thing, I mean, I've got 2 boys, and I'm really glad now that I'm showing them that actually I really enjoy the job I do, and that actually you can genuinely make a career out of the thing you love. I explained to my son, who's 11, you know, when I was 11, I used to write a wrestling magazine, and I used to print it out at home, and I used to post it to people, you know, who paid me a very small amount of money to post it to America or Japan. You know, I was doing that when I was 11 because my dream was to write for WWF magazine. My dream was never to become a wrestler or a manager or a referee or be on TV. It was always to write about wrestling. And, I'd say to my children now, like, just keep following whatever thing you love, because probably whatever you love as a kid will be what you want to do and what you can do as an adult if you just put in the work and keep being consistent.
Absolutely. And I just want people to realize that if there's something that you love, with the era of the internet that we're living in right now, there is a way to somehow maybe not make a living off of it right away, but to make a little bit of money off of it. And I think that dive into the things that fuel you, like the things that really juice you up, the things that you love, like bring a little bit more of that into your life. If it's playing guitar, grab the guitar, more often than not. Maybe it's just sitting in the closet or something. Like maybe just bring it out so you pick it up every once in a while. Or if it's singing or dancing or whatever it happens to be, like the things that you're passionate about are the things that put a smile on your face, and lean into those things in your life.
Absolutely. Well, look, floor is yours, Chris. Over to you. If any of my audience hasn't checked out your show before, how do they find you? How do they follow what you're doing? What are your socials, and what are the best ways to connect with Chris Van Vliet?
Well, great to see you, Ben. Anybody that's watching this needs to subscribe to Wrestling Life. How are you watching this right now and you haven't subscribed? That's the thing I don't get about current YouTube. You'll watch this entire video, you're almost an hour in and you haven't clicked the subscribe button. That is wild to me. So while you're subscribing to Ben, also subscribe to my two channels. The main one's just Chris Van Vliet. The other one is CVV Clips. And then I'm at Chris Van Vliet on social media. And go buy Marc Mero's book. It's right behind Ben right there. See that? Yeah, there it is.
Do what the man says. Absolutely. Well, look, Chris, I know you're all about gratitude. Incredibly grateful for you today. Grateful for all the help you've given me, but also just for laying a blueprint for doing this, because there's a lot of us guys out there, I think, who have modeled what they're doing a large part on what you're doing. So thank you, and keep doing it. And I'll keep enjoying your lovely podcast whilst I go for my long walks.
Thank you, sir. And keep up the great work.
Thank you. And on the subject of thanks, a thank you to my producer, Jeff Easton from Tall Lake Productions, who always brings these episodes to life so wonderfully. Thank you to my audience. Thank you, everyone, for checking out today's show. I have been Ben Veal. My very special guest has been the GOAT of pro wrestling podcasts, Mr. Chris Van Vliet. This has been Wrestling Life. More real talk from real talent coming soon. So until then, be good to each other. Pay it forward. I'll see you soon. I'm out of here. Bye.